Hello and welcome to the Eating Disorder Therapist podcast. I'm Harriet Frew, eating disorder therapist, here to support you in overcoming disordered eating and finding peace with food. Now, today I am really thrilled to have Anne Richardson back on the podcast, and this is my first guest episode for over a year. So it's a very special one. I love Anne to bits, and she's also a good friend. So welcome, Anne.
Thank you for having me as your first guest. That's really cool.
So I just say a little bit about you, Anne. You are a registered nutritional therapist and you blend nutrition with cognitive behavior therapy. And I do believe you've just been on a bit of a cognitive behavior therapy marathon recently. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure marathon. I'm sure you're supposed to finish a marathon quicker than I finish my my course. But yeah, I've been doing like a diploma in CBT, and it took me forever. You have to do that alongside working full time, being a mum, making food and all of that. So it took me forever. But yeah, I'm done now. All done.
Yeah, well done. And I guess it's kind of like a bit of a metaphor for eating disorder recovery, isn't it? That it's a bit of a journey sometimes, and along the way you probably felt like giving up, but you kept on going.
And there were tears.
And there were tears and tantrums and all sorts. So let's just say a bit more about you. So Anne has a special interest in disordered eating and tends to work mainly with people with anorexia, orthorexia, OSFED, and also bulimia. And Anne has also had her own recovery journey, growing up in France and recovering though from anorexia. So she really has that personal hands-on lived experience, which I know many people really, really sort of value that and just sort of hearing, what it's like and knowing that you've had that experience on the road yourself. So today, Anne is talking about the eating disorder as a coping strategy. We're going to be talking a bit about motivation for change, managing weight restoration, particularly when you're underweight, can be a bit of a challenging old journey, can't it? And sort of navigating our way through all the different nutritional advice, which is overwhelming, isn't it, these days? Simple and complex all in one. So, welcome, Anne, again. Thank you for being here today. So before we launch in, Anne, like apart from finishing your CBT diploma and living a busy life and running your practice, is there anything you want to share with the listeners about anything that's kind of going on for you at the moment in your business?
Um, Not really, but it's funny because we're almost in March now, and like in January is like New Year, New You, and everyone is doing all sorts of things, and I really haven't felt like that. I didn't feel like I wanted to do that, but I felt really like very much old me buried under a lot of sand, and then like it felt like it's been difficult to come out of that. And I was thinking this morning because this morning was actually beautiful. We actually had some sun. I was thinking that the weather has been so bad that I couldn't come out of that sort of depth of the winter and how it really affected me. So I feel like I'm it's January for me. I'm starting my new year. I'm emerging. I'm coming out of my cave and I'm feeling positive.
We're very glad, Anne, to have you out of your cave and, here today. It does make a difference, doesn't it, the weather? I mean, no wonder the Brits talk about the weather all the time. I mean, does the same happen in France? Do you talk about the weather in France?
Yeah, I think it happens everywhere. But yeah, we talk about the weather all the time as well. I mean, especially where I come from, because the weather is basically like in the UK. So, we've got plenty to talk about. I'm sure if it's sunny all the time, you don't have to talk about the weather. I don't know what you talk about. Don't know.
It's so true. Anyway, let's kind of get into it. So, often with eating disorders, we sort of say, it's not about food, it's about feelings, and there's often more going on beneath the surface. So, could you say a little bit more about your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly not about food. I think the food just is a means mm, to no, I don't want to say to cope, but it's something we can do something about. The food is tangible, but it's never really about food. And I think that's kind of the first thing that I would like to understand when I have someone coming to see me. Usually they want to tell me all about their food, but I want to know what is the purpose of the eating disorder? Why did they first, and do they still feel like they need to control, use, abuse food in order to be okay. Um, and because it's never just the food, it's there's something else there. And to me, if you don't understand what is the purpose of your eating disorder, I don't see how you can recover, because we're trying to almost take away or change something, the food, that the person is using in order to feel better about something else that's happened. Mm, but it can feel really like not violating, but like when you've been, working hard at an eating disorder, you literally have worked hard. You work hard at restricting and doing all those things which are really difficult, and you're actually quite good at it. So you don't want someone like me coming along going, well, actually, I think you're fine, that you need this and this and this, and we're going to change everything and make sure you have custard with your food. Because that would piss me off if, sorry, so it would really annoy me, because, I've worked really hard. Let's say I'm the one with the eating disorder. I worked really hard for this. I'm really good at this. I don't want this crazy French woman to tell me what to do. So that's when we need to understand what was the need to modulate the food, or to control the food, before we even talk about food, if that makes sense, or about changing the food. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense, doesn't it? You're really sort of meeting someone, I guess, much more where they're at, and rather than coming in trying to fix or change immediately, you're trying to really understand with curiosity and compassion how it's helping them cope, or whatever language you would want to use. But I guess it's a bit like a life raft, isn't it? Or something to sort of hold on to kind of keep you safe. It's I mean, perhaps you'd even like to say, like, what do you find that people are often, using the eating behaviors? What's underneath those eating behaviors sometimes when you're looking at how it's helping them cope or manage better?
Yeah, there's lots of reasons why people do end up abusing food, and I like to sort of likening it to like a taggy. When kids are little, they often need like a cuddly toy, and often, at least in this country or in Europe, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but you can buy this little square of fabric with lots of little um, tags, and they like, often children like to sort of like twiddle those things. You know what I mean by the tagging? To me, that's kind of represents the eating disorder. At some point, the person needed some comfort for one reason or another, and they found this taggy, and it's really comforting. The problem is that a taggy for a child is not a problem. It's just a lovely soft toy or cuddly thing. But an eating disorder creates its own problem, and so that's why we're keen on removing it. But we can't just snatch it away in the same way as you can't snatch it away from a child, because they need it. And I often use this story. When my youngest was little, he had this little monkey that he liked, and actually used to twiddle the tag. But when he was at preschool, he was allowed to bring the teddy with him every day, and it was totally fine. But when he started school, there was this rule that you can't really bring your teddy anymore. But they're not super strict, and so at the start, he was allowed to take the teddy, and the teddy would sit on the table, and it was fine, and he would play Lego with everyone. Um, and then gradually the teacher said, oh, now the teddy can just go in your tray at school. So the teddy was going in a tray, and then the teddy would come with us to school, and then he would stay in my bag. And then obviously when I was picking him up, the teddy was there. And gradually the teddy just kind of went further and further away, and then it stayed at school. And now the teddy, to my major sadness, is in the cupboard, because he's 13, he doesn't need it. We're not going to get rid of it, but he doesn't need it. And the thing is, when he was little, when he started school, it was quite scary to start school. There was nothing dangerous about school, but to him, as a little 5-year-old, it was scary. So he needed that teddy. But had we tried to snatch it, it would have been really scary for him. So we just did it really gradually. And then he saw that actually school wasn't dangerous. It was quite fun, and he didn't need to have the teddy. And gradually, he let go. And I guess with eating disorder, what we need to do, not snatch the teddy or the taggy away. And also, the process of recovery is showing the person that it's okay to be scared. And maybe there were reasons to use the taggy to start with. But you know what? We can find other ways to make you feel better and ways that won't harm you because it's not a teddy, it's an eating disorder. And obviously that has an impact on your mental and physical health. So it's about, that's why I say it's about finding the purpose. What is the purpose of your eating disorder teddy? And can we find another way to um, fix that problem or to make you feel better without this teddy that actually is starting to sort of hurt you now? Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's so helpful. I always love your metaphors.
My brain cannot work otherwise. I have to because I have images.
But yeah, and it's so helpful, isn't it, to think about sort of like letting go gradually, actually. And of course, it's scary, but that's okay. You can kind of deal with those feelings, and it's a gradual process. You haven't got to suddenly like drop the teddy and drop the eating disorder and abandon it overnight.
Yeah, you don't have to become a grown up straight away because you start school. You're still a little kid and you need stuff. But gradually you are growing up and yeah, and when you're 13, turns out you don't need the teddy, you know.
Yeah. So I guess because of we often need our eating disorder teddies, we're starting the process of
Yeah.
therapy. So motivation for change then can be quite up and down, can't it? Because of you don't want to let go of this coping
Mm.
strategy. So can you say a bit more about that? Because I guess sometimes people come into to work with you and they want to change, but they're also really in two minds about it.
Yeah, and I see two different kinds of clients, really, broadly speaking. I see adult clients who often mm, ambivalent, but they are much more motivated because often they have lived with the eating disorder for a longer time, longer period of time. And so they're a bit tired and they want something else. And also, really pragmatically, they've made the decision to come in, to search for you, to email you, which is really scary to start with, to talk to you. And also, really pragmatically, they are the ones paying you. So they don't want it, ideally, to last 10 years because, it's expensive, this thing. And then I have the teenagers who don't want to be there. Um, they think you're completely ancient. You don't have no idea what you're talking about, and you can't possibly know what they're going through because that's basically what a teenager is all about. No one understands you, let alone someone, someone like me. And they often think, like, don't take my teddy away, basically. And what they often do is that they think, consciously or not, I'm going to be nice enough, and this woman is going to go away after a while and my parents are going to be happy and then I can just go back to my old ways and it's really difficult. Those clients are difficult, but I really love them as well. I love teenagers. They're really lovely to work with, but it's harder and I often find myself having to work a lot with motivation with them or on motivation with them, and sometimes it can last, like a couple of months just on motivation because they just don't want to be there. And sometimes we have to draw the line and say, look, this isn't working. You're not totally ready for this. Doesn't mean you can't recover. It could mean that I'm not the right person. And I often say to people, look, find someone else potentially. Just so you know that you will find another Anne. It's unlikely that someone is going to say something differently, but they might say it in a way that works better for you. And please do that. The important thing is that you recover with me or someone else. But sometimes they leave it for a little bit, and then with time, they just go, actually, I do want to get better. And so they get back in touch. And sometimes motivation can be quite strong when they talk to you, and then 20 minutes later, not so much, or and then it can become strong, and then by the end, it's not so much. Just in one session, motivation can change. So that's why you have to be gentle and you have to give it some time. But we cannot drag someone, I think, into eating disorder recovery. There needs to be, if not motivation, I think curiosity. You don't have to be ready. I think a lot of the time we hear that, you have to be ready. I don't think you're necessarily going to be ready, but you have to be curious. Could my life be different? Could it be better? I think curiosity is important. And it's harder with teenagers because, because they are in their own head, invincible. And they think actually also because if it hasn't gone on for very long, they just think, it's working very well for me. I don't really know what the fuss is all about. I wanted to lose weight. I've lost weight. I'm great at this. Everyone is paying me compliments. Why am I going to change? Are you nuts?
Yeah, I think it's so helpful to share that and the importance of meeting your client where they're at, isn't it? It's like not forcing and recognizing that motivation fluctuates. People are often in two minds, feeling very ambivalent, and really working on that
Mm.
motivation first rather than often diving headfirst in the deep end.
Yeah, and I think that's where sometimes more traditional places, I don't want to say the NHS because it's not the NHS, it can be in any country, but hospitals or camps, sometimes they go too strong too soon. And I understand why they're doing it. They want to save that person, and then they just go, look, this is information. If you don't do that, technically you're going to die. Your bones are going to crumble. You'll never have children. Like they go quite strong, and they are not wrong. And they have those meal plans, 3 meals, 3 snacks, and 2 desserts, glass of milk. We all know that the meal plans, and the meal plan is correct. I cannot fault that, but sometimes it's just scary and it's too much. And I think when you do that, you can lose the person, and and sometimes the trust, because sometimes let's say with camps, it's not like they have the choice as much as with me because it's private, but um, the trust can be lost, and that's when the young person can go automatically on autopilot to the session thinking, this person is just whatever, they don't know anything, when actually the person knows, but they're not listening. Um, that's often been my experience with people.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, isn't it? And I think often in the NHS, and perhaps particularly working with teenagers, or particularly when the resources are just not enough as well, there's a lot of focus on the food, isn't there? And like you say, there's
Mm,
nothing wrong with that exactly, but if someone's not really ready, motivated for change, it cannot create a good, trusting, therapeutic dynamic for change, can it? And
yeah,
I think sometimes it can really put people off recovery.
yeah.
So, Anne, say a bit more about the need to weight restore when you're underweight, because I think often in eating disorder recovery, understandably, people might want to like listen to lots of podcasts, read all the things about thought challenging and emotions and all the stuff, but want to avoid the very thing that they often need to do. So can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, often people essentially tell me, I want to recover, I really do, Anne, I want to recover, just don't want to put weight on. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. I mean, sometimes it does, because obviously we all know an eating disorder doesn't mean you are underweight. There are lots of people who have eating disorders and they're not underweight. I do tend to see people who are underweight. Not all of them are, but a big majority of them. And in those cases, we do have to go via the weight restoration box, because if you're too underweight, it will have an impact on your cognition. And in fact, I do turn down people who are too underweight, because I sometimes think, it's a waste of your money. And I'm quite honest with people. I just go, I'd like to help you, but it's a waste of your money. Potentially, it's also unsafe. You're going to hear me, but you're not, or you're going to listen to me, but not hear me. And that's because you are too underweight. And sometimes we can be in a situation whereby they're not so underweight that they can be hospitalized, but they are too underweight for me to see them, and it's a bit complicated. Um, and essentially, if you are too underweight, your brain doesn't work as well, and you can't make the right links. And so we can talk to you until the cows come home, but it's going to be difficult for you to really for this information to sink in. Um, yeah, it's still really important to weight restore, and how do you do that is complicated, and it depends on the person. But it always is done through eating. That's the slight problem.
And what would you say to anyone watching who is in that place at the moment that's recognizing I need to eat more, but I'm absolutely terrified? Like, how do you support your clients to surrender and begin to take those steps?
I guess it's easier if you're working with someone because they can make a plan for you. And the plan, is not rocket science. It's not, a secret. It is going to be, the 3 meals, the 3 snacks, 2 desserts kind of thing. Obviously, if they're working with me, we will start where they're at. And my role is to get the balance right between meeting them where they're at, but pushing them enough that they're going ahead, or they are, moving on, but not pushing them so much that it's scary. And recently, I've had 2 cases. One person I was going gently, and she was quite straightforward with me or honest with me. She said, "Look, you need to push me more." And I was like, "Right, let's go then." And we did. And when it was too much, we would say, "Well, it's a bit too much now. Just calm down." But anyway, she did so brilliantly that she's gone now. She's lovely, and she did really well. And yet I had someone else at the same time, and just me asking for 3 meals freaked her out so much that she stopped. So I have to sort of balance that correctly. And if you are not working with someone, then have this plan at the back of your head of the 3 meals, 3 snacks, blah, 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 blah. See where you're at and try to push yourself. And I would say maybe you sort of write this down, say, like, okay, you're having just 2 meals right now. The obvious choice would be to have another meal. So when would that meal be? What could it contain? And force yourself to do that in a fairly mechanical way. Um, it's almost like it has to happen. And that's why working with someone is kind of a little bit easier, because people can, and I often say that to people can blame me. You know how the eating disorder can be really nasty and go, you shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be doing that. What I say to my clients is that, hey, you haven't decided any of this. It's all my fault. You can just tell the eating disorder is that Anne person, I don't have any choice. She's making me do this. Obviously, I'm not there kind of forcing the food down them, but I take all the blame because it's easier. And when you're on your own, it's very much your decision. Um, but then you have to think of the motivation. If you really don't want to do it, think about your purpose. Why is it that you're doing this? What do you want to get? What would your life look like if you didn't have that, manky teddy that you're dragging along with you? Could we try and use that to help you and have that third meal, or even if it's just like a quarter of that meal, can we just, like edge towards it? Sometimes I tell people to do mood boards. What would your life look like? And we've got like, skiing and pets and boyfriends, like sometimes people make placemats. So it's literally there when they're putting their plates down and they see all their life ahead. It can be quite helpful. But I would say start. And I think the important thing as well is that you really cannot get better by thinking it. You can't sort of, what is it called? Manifest. You can't manifest your way out of an eating disorder.
Yeah, you've got to
It's
take the
lovely
action.
to think about it. Yeah, it has to come through action. And the scarier the action, I would say, the more likely it is that it's going to have a positive impact. Essentially, whenever you do something that is really scary, that the eating disorder hates, it's a really good clue that it's something that is going to help you. And that's the difficulty of it, because the more you do that, the more you get shouted at by the eating disorder, the more uncomfortable it is. And the more likely you're going to think, you know what, stuff it. I'm not doing that. It's way too hard. And actually, staying with my eating disorder and being hungry all the time is much easier. Thank you very much. I'm not doing that. And that's why people are ambivalent, and that's why people relapse. And that's totally understandable. And I think our job is also to tell people, look, it's going to be horrible. Just so you know, working with me is going to be horrible. You're going to cry. I always say to people, provided I don't cry, we're okay. But you're going to cry. You're going to hate me. You're going to feel rubbish. You're going to feel rubbish. But I promise you, life is better on the other side. I promise you that, and I maintain it. I would never go back to my eating disorder. I'm having way too much fun now. I love food, there is no way. And even though I talk to people about, like restricting all the time, I don't have this because I know what life can be when you're recovered. But it is hard, and you have to be strong. And ideally, you need a support system because it's so hard. You know, if you could have someone to, not rely upon, but a shoulder to cry on, people who can sort of hold your hand, it really helps. So again, teenagers have this. Usually, they have lovely parents who are there and who support them. But also, I see people with lovely wives, lovely husbands who help, friends who help out. All these people are really, really important. They are part of your team as well, your support system.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And I love the placemat idea and having something very visual because you need to be constantly reminded, don't you, of
Yeah.
why you're doing it.
Yeah, sometimes
Mm.
people use post-it notes. So I've got a client who has loads of post-it notes in her house, and yeah, just remind herself, because I can't be there all the time. So little snippets of things that I tell her, she writes them on a post-it note, and then she puts them in her house, and that's quite helpful.
Oh, no, I love it. So, Anne, say a bit more about nutritional advice, because I guess if you go on social media these days, you can learn how to eat like a carnivore or I don't know, follow some obscure diet or fast or
Oh,
so like how do we deal with all of this information in this age and recover?
yeah, I mean, ideally we wouldn't be on social media, but at the same time, it wouldn't solve the problem. You and I, I'm afraid, are old enough that we managed to have an eating disorder without Instagram. So, it did exist before. Um, so that's not the answer. And there are lots of good things on social media. I would say, to me, nutrition is actually really, really simple. I often joke when I do talks that I studied nutrition for 3 years, and I can summarize it just like this, which is you need to eat um, a bit of everything, not too much, not too little. That's it. That's all you need to know. That's it. Done. You're better now. Um, that's my philosophy when it comes to food. Um, The complicated part, so that's the simple part. The complicated part is there is no black and white in nutrition. So often people ask me questions and they go, "What do I do this or do I do that?" And always go, "It depends. It depends." And I think for me, the important thing with nutrition is frequency and also intention. Do you do this? Why do you do this? Sometimes it's okay, I think, to skip a meal, not if you're in recovery, if you're like a normal eater. If the intention isn't to lose weight, let's say, you had a really big lunch at 4 o'clock, because it was you went to the pub or something, you don't really want to have dinner at 7. I don't have a problem with that because the intention isn't to restrict. The intention is just, there is no intention, I'm full, I'm not eating, that's fine. Mm, but if the intention is, or if you've had a big meal and you're not full and you're thinking, well, I've eaten too much and I shouldn't have had that, then the intention is different. Then I have a problem with it. So it depends. Um, is it okay for me to eat to have I don't know, a McFlurry? I don't know if that's still a thing. Like there's ice cream from McDonald's. I'm like, yeah, I mean, as per my rule, you can eat a bit of everything, not too much, not too little. I don't care what you're eating, frankly. Um, but yeah, it's super processed. It depends. If you're having one every day, maybe we need to talk about it. If you're having one and again because you think it's delicious, then I don't care. So that's kind of my rules when it comes to nutrition. It should be relatively simple, but the application can be complicated, and it's a lot of gray and it's a lot of it depends. There is no black and white, and I guess maybe that's like a little clue. If you go on social media and you see someone who gives you black and white, I would say almost certain that you can unfollow that person, block them actually. It's easier. Because nutrition is just not like that. So if people tell you that you can only eat carnivore, no. Or you should only eat, I don't know, eggs, or you should only eat edamame beans or whatever crazy things come out. I would say no. So it's not black and white. And my problem with sort of people on Instagram who talk about nutrition is they're often very much like one or the other, so very black and white. And then they make things very complicated for people because of that. They create problems, basically. The more simple you are with food, the fewer problems that you have. The more rules you have, the more problems you have. And also what I've noticed that people are very black and white because in a way they don't want the complexity of it depends. They often people would prefer to be told to never eat sugar again because it's toxic and your teeth will fall out. It's easy for them to do that because then they just go, I've got a strict rule and I can follow that. I don't like you with your own it depends moderation. I don't like you, lady, because it's too complicated. And I get that. But in the long run, what is more complicated? Never have sugar, so you can never have birthday cake or whatever, or have a little bit, or sometimes quite a bit because it's fun, and then have a bit less. What is going to be easier in the long run? And often the black and white is much easier to start with, but not in the long run. And between to start with and the long run, you have this kind of corridor where things can go very wrong. And that's when disordered eating happens and potentially eating disorders. And that's why I don't like the black and white people. Not people, like I like people, but black and white sort of version of nutrition because life just isn't like that. It's much more nuanced. I often joke, I think on Instagram, I always say that I'm like 50 Shades of Nutrition is just, it's always grey with me. Everything is grey. You've got to like grey.
Yeah, so helpful, isn't it? And I think it's, going back to the eating disorder as a sort of coping, teddy survival thing, when it's black and white, I guess the rules feel safe, don't they? And in the short term, that can feel very comforting, but it's often not sustainable, is it? I think for most people, just to completely cut out a food group or to become a carnivore for the rest of your life. I don't know, peace and love to anyone
No,
that's doing it and thriving. But
that's
I
the thing
think
also. Yeah, it's easy to start with and it's difficult. And also we have to question, is it even safe? Like, I mean, the carnivore thing, I can't remember the name of the guy, but there was this really famous guy who was really like the carnivore king.
the liver king,
And
the liver king.
yeah, and a few years after, he was like, yeah, actually, I realized it's not
Um,
so good for me.
oh, there's a
No,
different one.
great.
I'm thinking the liver king that was
Oh yeah, the liver king.
attributing his muscles to the carnivore diet was actually on steroids.
Yeah, I mean that's slightly different because he was lying the whole time, and he knew what he was doing. The other guy, I don't know what his name is because clearly I'm not following him. But no, he was really like he wrote a book and stuff. He's very much the carnivore guy. And then he was
Oh,
like, yeah, actually, then I had lots of problems, and I'm thinking it wasn't so good. And we're like, well, you made millions out of people buying your book, telling everyone that you should be just eating cows. That's crazy. How can you do that?
it's not good, isn't it?
No.
Anyway, goodness. So, Anne, I mean, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. So helpful. So, could you tell people where they can find you if they want to get in touch with you after this episode?
Yes, of course. So I'm on Instagram at the Eating Disorder Nutritionist. And I post what I like. So I don't necessarily follow mainstream. I don't know. I just yeah. I post what I think might be helpful, and yeah, I like fun. So sometimes it's a little bit crazy what I post, but not crazy, but I like to make fun of myself and fun in general. So yeah, it's not very serious, my Instagram account, and that's what I'm trying to say. And otherwise, my website is the eatingdisordernutritionist.co.uk, and you can find me there as well if you need some help.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Anne. I'll just put the details in the show notes. Thank you. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for listening and watching the Eating Disorder Therapist podcast. Do subscribe for more episodes, and there will be more guests coming soon.